I want to kind of quickly touch on one main question, and either of you can answer this. I don't know the answer, so, go for it. What is a language?
It's a dialect with an army and a navy.
Oh, are you kidding me? I literally have this exact quote.
And I'm literally quoting it back at you because it's the best example I've ever found.
Oh my gosh.
That's brilliant.
Do you want to explain what you mean by that, or what Max Weinreich means by that?
Yeah, so there are a lot of languages that are very close to each other. And there are a lot of dialects that, honestly, it's really difficult to have mutual intelligibility. And it's basically down to, does a government describe this as a language rather than as a dialect of another? It's a really fuzzy distinction between the two.
Which is super interesting. If you look at sort of Chinese, so we think of Chinese as a language, but actually Mandarin and Cantonese, you can't really understand. They have the same sort of, I think, writing system, but someone speaking Cantonese cannot necessarily understand someone that's speaking Mandarin because they just don't interact that way. They're not sort of mutually intelligible. You can't understand one while speaking the other.
That's so interesting, actually, because when you were talking about the stuff about France, about like France compelling certain words and certain uses of words and compelling government to use certain words, that to me sounded almost like nationalistic, like trying to impose the continuation of a culture rather than letting culture just naturally evolve. But by that definition, that sort of actually part of the definition of a language is it's almost relative to a government ordaining it as a language, and so it's not too much of a step to sort of start imposing certain aspects of a language if you're a government with an army.
Well, you say that though, and I've just got back from the US, and in the South, especially of the US, there is so much Spanish. It's basically bilingual, right? And in some places, I've seen signs that are just in Spanish, and there's not anything in English. So this was sort of California, Texas, all of those states down there. And yet, I don't think the US has an official language, right? It doesn't have an official language. But if it were to have an official language, by the standards of the number of people that speak it and the number of signs and whatnot are in Spanish and English, the US is essentially a bilingual country. But they don't have an official language, so they're not officially bilingual, but they essentially are, right? And it's weird because we usually think of the United States of America being an English-speaking country, when in reality, if you actually go there and you interact with people that live there, that's not really necessarily the case.
Yeah, similar with, I just went to Brussels in Belgium. Yeah, Belgium. And it has 3 official languages and 3 different areas of the country that speak different languages. And the guy I was with, who was sort of touring me around Brussels, was telling me that they sort of operate like close. They could become 3 different countries. If there wasn't this unifying thing keeping them together, they don't really get on. They don't really like each other. They speak different languages. They could sort of become part of, I think, Germany and France. I forget where Belgium is on the map. But Brussels could sort of be one thing, and then these 2 other sections could basically be they could either be their own countries or merge into. Now, there may be people in Belgium who completely disagree with me, but this was sort of the idea. Like it not something that we have in Britain, where we actually are 3 or 4 countries sort of joined together in a union, and we are officially separate countries, but we sort of operate as one country. Well, these are officially one country. Begrudgingly, to a certain extent, operating as different countries because they have different languages, and depending on where you are, you have to speak a different language.
Oh, I mean, we operate as one country in the UK begrudgingly.
Oh, well, yes.
Some of us do.
Yes. Not officially. Officially, the majority does not operate begrudgingly.
Absolutely.
Oh God, we're getting into dangerous territory.
But language is political. Linguistics is political because everything that we do has to be described somewhere. So even if you're talking about what are meant to be the dry parts, about computational linguistics, about syntax, things like that, at some point you're gonna start talking about political stuff because you're gonna start talking about real people. It's not like you're going to be studying physics and deep atomic structures that don't affect most people's everyday lives. We all use language, so ultimately you're studying linguistics, you're studying everyone.
Wow, I think that is the best place to end that.
Absolutely. Very good.